o'clock news service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I am Muslima Sholebo with the news at 10.
And I am Dennis Ademuloye with the news this hour. First, the headlines.
Oshimbajo at PPP workshop on infrastructure says correct application of risk allocation principles key for long-term viability of such projects.
Nigeria joins the rest of the world in marking the World Food Day, showcasing major achievements under the Buhari-led administration.
Senate approves election budget on security as requested by President Muhammadu Buhari.
Plus, Nigeria, Ghana and Liberia set to be honored at an international women's forum in Monrovia, Liberia.
We start this morning by taking you to Presidential Villa, where President Muhammadu Buhari Tuesday spoke with Mohammed Liman, father of Hawa Liman, the International Committee of the Red Cross ICRC midwife, who was slain by Boko Haram terrorists. A statement by Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, says that in a phone call, President Muhammadu Buhari commiserated with the family and assured Ms. Liman's father that the Nigerian government did everything possible to save his daughter's life, expressing sadness that all efforts turned out unsuccessful. He regretted that her commitment to helping victims of the Boko Haram insurgency ended in such a brutal way. President Buhari also spoke with Peter Mora, the president of the ICRC, extending his condolences on the loss of the midwife. The president commended the ICRC for the great work they have been doing in Nigeria by providing healthcare services to victims of insurgency in the most affected areas. President Buhari also appealed to the ICRC to continue their services in Nigeria and not to give up, despite the unfortunate and painful loss of their staff. According to the president, Nigeria needs the ICRC, and the government will continue to do all it can to protect staff of the organization and other aid workers that are providing much-needed humanitarian services in the Northeast region, which has been affected by almost a decade-long conflict.
In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari says the desperate manner in which the nations use DARE, the Sahara Desert and Mediterranean Sea, to take menial jobs abroad is hurting the pride of Nigeria.
Exchanging views with the outgoing High Commissioner of the Republic of Namibia, the president promised to put a stop to the disturbing trend by making the country livable again. State House correspondent Adam Musambo has more on that report.
President Muhammadu Buhari noted that Nigeria and South Sudan have a lot in common as regards developmental aspirations. He said although even for Nigeria, it has not been smooth sailing all the way, but things are now much better. And since the troubled country wants to share from Nigeria's experience, the federal government will support where it can towards achieving stability. The president, however, advised the leaders of South Sudan to keep making sacrifices so that the enabling environment can be created, stressing that stability should always be the #1 priority. As he puts it, you cannot manage a country efficiently without first stabilizing it. President Buhari said for the economy to grow, South Sudan must also provide jobs for the people, check corruption, and ensure that national resources are jealously guarded. The South Sudanese presidential envoy, Mr. Gad Kut, who is also his country's petroleum minister, said President Muhammadu Buhari is widely admired across the continent for his role in fighting corruption, noting that it was the reason the African Union made him a champion of the anti-corruption crusade. He said South Sudan is putting its house in order, but needs assistance from Nigeria in transforming the nation's security, achieving constitutional reforms, and enhancing infrastructural development. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari is reassuring Nigerians and the international community that the 2019 elections will not only be free and fair, but usher the country into a more promising era of peace, unity and maturity.
The president stated this while receiving 4 new ambassadors accredited to Nigeria. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has more.
The new envoys were in the State House to present their letters of credence to President Muhammadu Buhari so as to commence official duties in Nigeria. They are the ambassadors of the People's Republic of Japan, Yutaka Kikuta, Russian Federation, Alexei Shebashin, Brazil, Ricardo Guerra de Araujo, and the United Arab Emirates, Fahad Al-Tafaq. The president told the envoys separately that Nigeria's political and electoral institutions have continued to evolve in strength, skill, and experience after each election. Now at the threshold of another general election, the 6th in a series since the return to democracy in 1999, the president said he expects nothing short of free and fair conduct. President Buhari expressed the belief that the political system is good and if people work hard, they will succeed. The increase in the number of political parties that will field candidates in 2019 elections, he said, indicates more democratic consciousness amongst Nigerians and willingness to serve the country. The president told the Russian Federation envoy in particular that discussions on reviving the Jakarta Steel Complex, partnerships in agriculture and other bilateral interests in trade and economic development will be sustained. He commended the country for always standing by Nigeria. To the ambassador of Brazil, President Buhari noted that the historical ties between both countries and the shared potentials for growth will be further explored with strong emphasis on economic and social development. He said a number of Nigerians in Brazil already provides a strong reason for deeper and richer discussions for both countries. Exchanging views with the ambassador of the United Arab Emirates, Fahad Al-Tafaq, President Buhari assured him that Nigeria remains committed to strengthening the bilateral relationship that has existed between both countries for many years. The president expressed delight over the courtesies being extended to Nigerians in the United Arab Emirates, assuring the envoy that his administration will continue to strengthen business and trade relations with the Gulf nation. In his remarks, the ambassador of Japan said his country remains grateful for Nigeria's concern and support during the flooding that devastated the country and promised to work hard to further enhance relations in technology and agriculture. All the ambassadors who were earlier treated to a befitting diplomatic welcome assured the president of working hard towards enhancing ties in key sectors of the economy while wishing Nigeria the best in the forthcoming elections. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Turning to the National Assembly, the Senate has approved 53 billion naira for security agencies for the 2019 general elections. This was part of the funds requested by President Muhammadu Buhari in the Supplementary Budget Environment 2018. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo reports.
On Thursday, 11th October 2018, the Senate considered and approved the 2019 general election budget of 189 billion naira for the Independent National Electoral Commission, which is a component of the total budget for the elections. That of the security agencies, which is also strategic to the conduct of the elections, were scheduled for the next legislative day. And at Tuesday's plenary, the report of the Senate Committee on Appropriations on the budget of the security agencies was presented and considered. The Office of the National Security Advisor, 9.4 billion. Department of State Service, 10.2. Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, 3.5 billion. The Nigerian Police Force is to get 27.3 billion, while the Nigerian Immigration Service gets 2.6 billion naira.
The aggregate sum of 242 billion, 245 million, 50,100 naira be approved as environment for the 2019 general elections for ANEC and the above named security agencies.
I therefore urge my colleagues
to give the necessary approval so that this report will be passed, and then these agencies will have the money to prosecute the 2019 election as requested by Mr. President.
I hope with this that those respective agencies will do what is required in ensuring that we have a credible, safe election in 2019.
The 53 billion security budget is to be vied from the Special Intervention Fund, just like the 189 billion for the Independent National Electoral Commission from the National Assembly. Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
In the meantime, the Senate is to investigate the management of the $3.5 billion subsidy recovery fund in the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC. Ignatius Nkwo has more on that.
Senate Minority Leader Biodun Olujimi rose on the matter of urgent national importance to move that the Senate do investigate the subsidy recovery fund.
The $3.5 billion is being managed by just two individuals of the NNPC. And this fund is too huge to be managed without appropriation.
The Senate leader and other members of the Senate should look at this thing objectively, as you say, as a non-partisan basis.
The investigation will be carried out by an ad hoc committee. The legislators confirmed the nomination of Abba Ali and Mohammed Sagir as non-legal members of the Federal Judicial Service Commission, as presented by Senator David Umaru, Chairman, Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters. Meanwhile, the Senate has condemned the killing of a Red Cross official, Hawa Liman, by insurgents in a motion of urgent national importance moved by Deputy Senate President Ike Ekweremadu.
Decides to help humanity with their time and their expertise. We owe them the responsibility of protecting them while they do this work, and now that they are dead, we also owe them more responsibility of making sure that they are not dying in vain.
The life of a glooming young woman have just been unceremoniously terminated.
The security agencies have done very well in dealing with them. Let them know rest of their hours, let them be up and doing.
To extend condolence to the families of deceased and the international community in which one of the deceased served. Those in favor of prayer to say aye. Those against say nay. I observe it.
The legislators observed 2-minute silence in honor of the late health worker.
National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports that the fund will be sourced from the 2018 Appropriation Act.
The environments will make financial provisions for INEC, Office of the National Security Advisor, Department of State Security Service, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, Nigeria Police Force and Nigeria Immigration Service.
The request was in respect of buy-amend of funds to finance Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and the security agencies toward preparation of the 2019 general election, for which no provision were made in the 2018 Appropriation Act.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it.
Tuesday's plenary also passed at second reading a bill for an act to amend the Electoral Act, which seeks to address identified gaps in existing law to entrench an effective and more transparent electoral process. Other bills that made it through second reading are those seeking to provide a legal framework to establish 20 federal medical centers, sponsored by Tajuddin Abbas, and the bill for an act to establish National Security Trust Fund meant to take care of procurement of security infrastructure and technology for security agencies, sponsored by Representative Rimande Shaulu. While taking matters of urgent national importance, the lawmakers called for synergy among the various agencies of government to curb the unending cycle of flood disaster across the country, considering its devastating effects on lives and property, as moved by Representative Diri Doye. The House describes as tragic the execution of abducted voluntary health workers Seifura Kursa and Hawuliman by Boko Haram terrorists when the matter was raised by Representative Chike Okafo, and urged the federal government and international community to fast-track negotiations for the release of all abductees still held captive.
Urge our development partners not to relent in their aid and support for counter-terrorism in Nigeria.
A minute's silence was observed in honor of the victims. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
This is the news at 10, coming to you live on the Nigerian Television Authority. If you have missed out on a major event in Ekiti State Tuesday, stay with us for details after the break.
The Nigerian Television Authority News 24 channel, your dependable all-round news station, offering you world-class news programs, documentaries, spotlights, promos and information highlights. Take advantage of our network reach and advertise your interest, goods and services with us. NTA News 24, first among equals with digital broadcasting. You can reach us on Channel 21 Terrestrial TV and Channel 101 on the Star Times platform. For more inquiries, please call Henry on 0803 379 0884. Join us today.
Thanks for staying with us on the News Desk at 10, reaching you live from Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Former Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Dr. John Kayode Fayemi, has been sworn in as Governor of Ekiti State. He was elected as Governor under the All Progressives Party on July the 14th, 2018. Ruth Aguele monitored this ceremony.
The ceremony, which took place at the Ekiti Parapo Pavilion in Ado Ekiti, was attended by members and supporters of the All Progressives Congress from across the country.
That I will be faithful. That I will be faithful. And bear true allegiance. And bear true allegiance. To the Federal Republic of Nigeria. To the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Governor Kayode Fayemi taking the oath of allegiance administered by the Chief Judge of Ekiti State, Justice Ayodeji Ramola. The governor promises to restore hope to the people of Ekiti State by upholding the mandate bestowed on him through transparency and accountability. Governor Fayemi said his administration will focus on rebuilding the state by revitalizing the economy, ensure food security through agro-businesses, provide infrastructure, and harness the potentials Ekiti State is blessed with.
It is our duty, and we will live up to it, to ensure we thoroughly review, document, and widely disseminate the present state of affairs so that all and sundry can know what has become of our Commonwealth.
President Muhammadu Buhari, who was represented by the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, described the governor as competent and served the nation well as Minister of Mines and Steel. He therefore called on the people of Ekiti to support the governor to turn around Ekiti State.
I want to assure Ekiti people that we shall support the new administration in its quest for people-centered development.
Governor Kayode Fayemi is assuming office as governor of Ekiti State for the second time. He once served between 2010 and 2014. Ruth Aguele, NTA News.
And still on politics. The All Progressives Congress has assured its party members and the rest of the public that the party will continue to pursue the rule of law and internal democratic ethics in all electoral processes of the country towards the 2019 general elections and also beyond.
National Publicity Secretary of the APC, Lanre Issa Onilu, said it is in line with this that the party immediately after the conduct of its primary across the country set up a National Primary Appeals Committee to address all grievances and issues that came out from the primaries, especially from its standard bearers. Political correspondent Salihu Abdullahi reports.
Barely 2 days to the submission of names of candidates by all political parties to the Independent National Electoral Commission, the APC is working round the clock to meet the deadline for the submission of its candidate for the general elections.
The party will do the right thing. That's why we have an appeal committee, which has been meeting for nearly 1 week now, and the report is coming in. And the party has given virtually everybody the opportunity to state its case. And it's a procedure, and APC is a party of procedure. And we always do the right thing. It's a progressive party. It's a party that ensures that the rule of law plays, at the end of the day, decide the fate of everybody.
In Abuja, Salihu Abdullahi, NTA News.
And the Alumni Association of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies is urging political elites to maximize existing laws, codes and guidelines to moderate the nation's different preferences, opinions and actions rather than taking to violence ahead of the 2019 general elections. Timothy Yusuf tells you more.
In modern democracies, dialogue as depicted by the parliament is the essence of give and take when there are contending issues, views and opinions. This position, among other issues, affirmed the Association of the Alumni Institute's belief that strict observance of laws is germane to national stability.
Indeed, history has taught us that all disagreements, wars and conflict do not resolve any disagreement. Disagreements are ultimately resolved on the round table in all cases. It is always wiser to judge than war.
While noting that the nation's democracy is becoming stable, the Alumni Association is throwing caution to political players and supporters as the political space gets busier towards another round of elections. In Abuja, Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
Meanwhile, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka has debunked the insinuation in the media that he endorsed former Vice President Atiku Abubakar during a meeting with former President Olusegun Obasanjo in Abeokuta. In his words, "I did not endorse Atiku Abubakar. My focus all along had been with President Obasanjo and I had never brought Alhaji Abubakar into what I was doing. It was reconciliation," he said, "and not an endorsement." Bishop Kuka said his personal preoccupation was a pastoral one and not political, stressing that the timing of his meeting with former President Obasanjo was purely circumstantial, not a plot. He said he has too many friends across party lines to openly endorse one candidate or party against the other.
And similarly, the Buhari Media Organization, BMO, has insisted that the Catholic Bishop Matthew Kuka should withdraw from the National Peace Committee led by former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar. In a statement by Buhari Media Organization, Chairman Niyi Akinshiju in Abuja says this is as a result of his open display of support for the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, contrary to the claims that he did not intend to convene a political gathering. The Buhari Media Organization added that it fully supports the President Buhari's administration that religious leaders abstain from partisan politics.
Moving away from politics now, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo has warned that any developing economy like Nigeria that discounts the centrality of risk allocation principles in public-private partnership is doing so at its own peril. He stated this at the opening of a two-day public-private partnership workshop organized by Global Infrastructure Hub in collaboration with Nigeria's Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, ICRC. He said the correct application of risk allocation principles in infrastructure projects is fundamental to bankability and the long-term viability of such projects. The Vice President described PPPs in infrastructure development as simply a practical wisdom as governments lack resources to solely finance, build and manage public infrastructure.
It is clear that the use of these contract management and risk assessment tools will further strengthen transparency and accountability in the Nigerian PPP environment, following up especially on the ICRC's earlier deployment of the PPP web disclosure portal. The extent of project information disclosure will also stimulate investor interest significantly. All of these efforts at improving transparency will provide more assurance to our people as they can now monitor the progress and implementation of PPP projects in the country.
At the workshop attended by representatives from 13 countries, it was revealed that $7.6 trillion is required to meet the infrastructure needs on the African continent between now and
right track with the program.
We are therefore proud to be associated with the giant strides that this government has made in promoting development of PPP as a viable procurement alternative to public sector funding on critical infrastructure and the success of the ICRC in achieving this.
I would like at this juncture, on behalf of my colleagues at the ICRC, to assure everyone gathered here of a very bright infrastructure future for Nigeria via PPP delivery to ensure that Nigeria becomes infrastructure sufficient in the shortest possible time frame.
A memorandum of understanding was signed between the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission and the Global Infrastructure Hub towards advancing the delivery of infrastructure in Nigeria and Africa.
Meanwhile, Nigeria, Ghana and Liberia are to receive honors at a two-day International Women's Forum in Monrovia, Liberia. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is scheduled to receive the award at the occasion, which theme is Advancing Women's Participation in Leadership. Let's now join State House correspondent Gideon Ifade in Liberia for more reports on the program.